All right. Well, good morning. And such is the nature of life that all it asks and all it wants is the opportunity to appear. You are that opportunity, and so am I. And so it is. Welcome to CSL Midtown, coming to you this morning from Atlanta, Georgia. We're so glad to see everyone here. We welcome all people, no matter who you are, no matter where you are in your life. We welcome all those who are listening online, and especially we welcome all those who came today to be in person with us. Our center reflects the beautiful, diverse tapestry of life. So we welcome you. Whoever you are, whatever path brought you to be here today, know that, yes, you are in the right place. This is the right time for you, and that you are an individual expression of the divine life in which we all live. You are welcome to participate here today and to become a part of this community. And if you're online watching our broadcast, we hope that you will like and share this with your friends. For a better understanding of who we are and what we teach, listen now to our Declaration of Principles written by our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes.
A few of the declaration of principles we live by.
I believe in one God, one absolute power, and first cause to all things.
I believe that this power is perfect love, and it creates out of a desire to express love.
I believe all thought is creative, and how I choose to think creates my personal experience.
I believe in the unity of all life, and the immortality of the individual soul forever unfolding.
I believe in the eternal goodness, the eternal loving kindness, and the eternal givingness of God to all.
And so it is.
So grateful, hey. Okay, my name is Judy Ailey. I'm one of the practitioners here at the center, and the full Declaration of Principle is on our website, cslmidtown.org. I want to just lead us this morning in a spiritual mind treatment or affirmative prayer. So we'll do that, and then we'll be followed with some music, and then we'll have our wonderful guest speaker. So if you will just get comfortable in your seats and close your eyes, and if you're comfortable doing that, and take a couple of nice, slow, deep breaths, and just allow yourself to be fully present and fully here right now in this room, in this moment. Letting go of thoughts that may be distracting you, letting go of what you've been doing this morning or where you're going to go next after here, and just instead allow yourself to know that there is one power, there is one presence, one life, one goodness everywhere. It is all around us, it is through us, it is expressing in all of life. This is a power for good. It is love, it is peace, it is joy, it is abundance, it is vibrant health, it is endless creativity of every kind. It is desiring to live its life through us in greater and greater ways. And I know that that we are all one, and that we are all connected to this presence and to this power. We are never separated from it. It fills our hearts and our minds with new ideas, with love, with endless possibilities. So I know for each one of us here today that no matter where we are in our lives, no matter what we might be facing, that this power is greater than any situation that we may see in our lives that may seem on the surface to be a problem or to be difficult, and that we are dealing with a power that is infinite in its possibilities to heal and to bless and to prosper. I turn away from any idea of lack, limitation, that things are going bad, or that the world is too hard right now, and that things are just too hard. I just turn away from that kind of thinking and instead know that this presence and this power is in me, it's around me, it's through me, and it guides and directs me as I go. So I'm just grateful for knowing this, I release this treatment now, knowing that it is so, and so it is. Our wonderful guest speaker today is an old buddy of mine from Kennedy Schultz days. She is currently part of the Atlanta Center for Spiritual Living. Is that what it's called? Spiritual Living Center of Atlanta. Okay, anyway, we welcome back, she's no stranger to us, Reverend Susan Zoller.
Thank you, Judy. Do y'all know what a gift she is to this place? I hope you do. A gracious good morning to you. Are you doing all right? That was not enthusiastic enough. Are you doing well? Thank you. Could we turn the volume down just a little on there? One of Ken Schultz's most interesting talk titles was In Defense of Sensible Underwear, which may seem a little strange for a church, but nonetheless, Ken had gone up his usual Maine vacation in August, and he heard a wise and witty Methodist minister give a talk entitled this. And so he was so impressed that he decided to come home and write one of his own, minus the Methodism. Now, the minister told Ken that he had been a bit concerned about giving this talk, not because the congregation might look askew on it, but because of the organist. She was a very prim and proper lady. She was elderly and distinguished. And as usual, she called in the middle of the week to get the talk title, to choose the music. And so fine. She didn't say anything about it. And then Sunday, he got up and gave his message and sat down and thought, oh, what is the music going to be? And the pianist said in a clear voice, stand and let's turn to page 276. And the congregation sang, oh, what a firm foundation. True. And, historically, undergarments were designed to cover us up. Now, today, it kind of seems like how much we can uncover with still wearing underwear and be legal. But, nonetheless, it was for many years extremely critical. And to many people, it still is today. My mother would have a fit if she knew some of the undergarments I've worn. Really. And it was important to be covered, absolutely. Now, great pride has been taken in knowing that you and yours are blessed with clean and appropriate undergarments. Absolutely. Of course, no one should ever see that underwear, absolutely. But if suddenly you had an illness or an accident and you were taken to the hospital, thank God the doctor could say, well, thank heavens you have on sensible underwear. That's what people expect. They always say, go put on some clean underwear. What if you were in an accident? Like the doctor is going to kick you out and whisper behind your back if you don't. I know people who believe that, and they believe it'll get out to the general public. But beliefs about undergarments have been important. They really have been. If you had a chill, non-sensible underwear was considered to be the source, and it was the devil trying to get out of you. And Lord knows what happened to people that was perceived to have the devil in them. Some of those stories aren't very pretty, but the order of Trappist monks is over 900 years old. They are very dedicated, and their lives are based totally around their spiritual practice and understanding. Absolutely. Talk was a distraction. Conversation took you away from thinking about God. And the only exceptions to this were emergencies when you might have to deal with the outer world or purchase something. They usually had monthly meetings, and they actually had to talk then. But self-sufficiency was highly, highly prized in their community. They grew their own vegetables, they baked their own bread. They had nothing to do with the outer world unless they absolutely had to. This was the very foundation of the Trappist beliefs. They were dedicated to constant prayer. Now, there was this one Trappist monastery. They faced an unusual problem. The man who made their underwear, because it was specially made, it was intricate, it was beautiful, and it had a prayer for each step of the process. And he died. What are they going to do? You know, if you say, okay, now you make the underwear, somebody had to replace that person, and somebody had to replace that person. So they were at kind of a conundrum about how they were going to deal with this. And finally, somebody said, look, let's just go down the road to Walmart and get some sensible underwear. And they did. You know, this was a big, big deal. So that was a huge change for them. And as they opened up to change, it was kind of a slippery slope. There was one change after another because they changed then outfits they wore. They no longer wore the robes. They wore sensible pants and shirts. They did away with their special haircuts. And then finally, somebody said, you know, the good we do, we can do in the community. So they started going out into the community, and before you know it, they were marrying and having families. It was a big, big change. Then they said, you don't have to really live here anymore. And you know what happened? 50% of them left the monastery. Absolutely. Now, you know, that's a big change. That's a huge change. They had this foundation that had been going for hundreds of years, and they just, in a relatively short period of time, and moved away from it. Were they even still Trappist monks? I don't know if they were considered Trappist anymore. But, you know, it is really practical to buy something that it takes a long time to make, and it's more convenient. You get more time to do things that you want to do, not that you have to do or you're obligated to do. So I can understand why they would want to do this, you know, but their lives were more efficient, but were they still in keeping with their basic beliefs? Were they still with their very foundation? You know, it was practical, it was liberating. But is it really? Because sensibility is a matter of intent, which is the real focus of today's talk. If you move away from your intent because it's practical, you're not with your intent anymore. You're not. Gives you a lot to think about. You know, sometimes we have that, find ourselves moving a little bit away from what we said we were going to do. Or, you know, that doesn't really matter so much, we tell ourselves. And you can do that. There's no one's going to come out and throw lightning bolts at you if you do it, but you have to think, what happened to my intent? And where am I going to go because of what I've chosen? Now, the life of a Trappist monk was not easy, traditionally. It was not. You know, their basic function was to do good, and they decided they could do good in the community, and so they did. They were not focused on saving time and making money, not at all. Did they consciously decide to give up what they had done, or was it one of those decisions where, well, I'll do this, well, you know, I can also do this, and you kind of slide down that slope into something totally different, and you may wake up and find you are far away from where you started. Absolutely. You know, I don't know if it was conscious or they just did it. Did they just drift into making decisions? Maybe. I really don't know more than what I'm telling you. I know sometimes I've drifted into that. Have you? Raise your hand if you drifted into a decision. One part, three people are telling the truth. Okay, because I think we probably all have it sometime. Not that I'm calling you names, just I think we all at one point or another do that, and we probably do it unconsciously. Now, some time ago, I read about a young, successful businessman who had made a lot of money. Interestingly enough, the reason I read about him was he was raised in the church of Dr. Norman Vincent Peale in New York. He was the man who famously wrote the huge bestseller translated in many languages, The Power of Positive Thinking. He taught that positive beliefs are important to achieve success and overcome negative circumstances. And using these principles that he learned from, I don't know how early on, the man became very, very rich. But there was one thing about it. He chose to use the principles only when he wanted to, only when it suited him. His use of them was not ethical. He caused many people to go bankrupt. Many people were never paid. Can you imagine the effect that had on other businesses and on the individual lives of people and families? It was rather devastating. I just always wonder what his karma has been. You know, we can't know the contents of his thoughts. I can sit here and speculate all day, but we never know the contents of someone else's consciousness, do we? As well as we know someone, there are parts of them we still do not know. The important part here is, how does this relate to the Trappist monks? Well, the whole thing is around intent. The Trappist monks was designed to keep them focused on the divine, to do good work, to be spiritually fed and feed others. I can't tell you exactly what the contents of the other person's, this businessman in New York, I can't tell you what his contents were. I have no idea. But if you look at his life, we can speculate, and it's not necessarily very pretty. Now, the law works as the law works, that's spiritual law. Whether we put into it good things, bad things, neutral things, dumb things, mean things, loving things, it responds the same way and creates according to our belief system. The energy that we vibrate out, because we're big towers of vibration. We're just practically radio transmission stations. And it goes into the law and comes back as our experience. And sometimes we don't even relate what we've put out to what comes back. I know that there have been times I didn't. I never thought that the tension I let myself go through and the stress and the frustration would lead to a tumor, but it did. Now, that doesn't say that's going to happen for everybody. That's just what it matched up in my experience. Luckily, I had this teaching, and that was 36 years ago. I'm still fine. Now, the Trappist gradually moved away. I'm not sure how this businessman's path went along, but we just know the results of it. Just like people see us, and they may not know us well at all, but they see the results of our actions, our words, our beliefs. So it's important to realize what we believe. That businessman chose power and financial success over everything else. He learned spiritual principles and he learned them well. He only applied them to the pursuit of financial success and power. Where it pleased him. But the universe didn't know that he didn't pay his employees, that he didn't pay companies that had done work for him. They just responded to what he had and what he put out. You ever see somebody and they're doing things and you think, that's not fair. How come I do all this and this person does all these other things, and yet how successful they are, what they have in life? Well, I tell you, it always catches up with you. As you know, karma's a bitch if you are. Now, it's true for everyone. It's not just this man or me or a select few or those of us in science of mind. It works for everyone equally all the time. And if we don't like what we're getting, we have to look at what we're putting out. It does so without judgment, evaluation. No one's out there going, now, Susan, honey, you don't want to do that. Think a better thought. Nope. It just says, okay. And, my circumstances or someone's circumstances are created correspondingly. The thing is, we do have to choose to deal with, or actively choose not to deal with, the consequences of what we create. Sometimes I don't want to. Maybe you have not wanted to sometimes either. But we do. It comes about. And Ken taught us to never look around for somebody to get theirs. You know what I mean? They did such and such. I just can't wait to see what happens to you. Because it's focusing on negativity. If we focus on negativity, we're going to get more negative things in our life. So, when you see people, you see someone in the government or a church or the whatever profession doing things you don't like, yes, we acknowledge them and we know it's happening. If there's something we can do to change it, we do it. But we do not let it become the focus of our lives. We do not obsess about it. And a lot of people are obsessing about a lot of things in the world right now. And it's good that we're aware of them, more aware than ever before because of mass media. But focusing on that without focusing on solution is going to yield more of what we don't want. So it's important that we get our intention clear, that we decide what we want to do and how we want to be, and to go forward with that. It's acceptable to change our minds. It doesn't mean you can't change your mind. We can just choose differently. But what happens that matters is how we do so. Is that one of those, well, I was going to do this, but it's really more convenient to do that, so I'm going to do that, while I'm over here, and it goes down? Or do we say, okay, I will do this today, I will never do this again, or I will choose not to do that? It really does have an effect. Let us remember, the thinker of the thoughts have the consequences manifested in their lives, in our lives, in my life. Now, unconscious decisions create just as mightily as conscious ones, unless we give those conscious decisions a lot of energy, a lot of thought and emotion. Now, think about it. Is there something you've always wanted to do, but you never quite made it to doing it? Anybody? Okay. I know that's for myself. What happens? How come somebody never changes their job? They just complain about it endlessly and complain and bore everyone else with their negativity and have people start avoiding them. How many of us have wanted to lose that 20 pounds, but we never do? And then you see somebody else that says, oh, I say, you look great. Oh, I lost about 25 pounds. How'd you do it? Well, I just changed what I was eating. I changed my exercise. They make it sound so easy. And then there's those of us who haven't made that same decision. And we get frustrated. Well, it's just not for me. No, it's just not your choosing. Unless you have a medical issue that is causing this, it's a choice. It's a choice of how we do things. And it matters quite frequently, thought by thought, action by action. When we are doing things unconsciously, we are creating just as much as when we do them consciously. Again, what powers a decision spiritually is the amount of focus we put on it and the energy behind it. If you have something you really want to do, you're so excited about it, you can't wait for it to happen. It's like somebody said once, oh, I couldn't wait to go out with that guy. I started getting ready at 3 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. 3 o'clock? He was picking you up at 7. But we were excited. Could you just not wait to go to work to get your evaluation and that promotion you wanted? I don't hear that from very many people these days. So it matters what we think and how we are thinking it, how we're making decisions. I have had so many times of doing that. I have been both the Trappist monks and I have been that businessman in my own way. And I learned one thing, if I really want to manifest something, I need to focus because we are taught, as a man or woman thinketh, so they are. As we are in our hearts, so we are. Because the energy we're putting out goes into that quantum field that I call God or spirit or higher power, and it comes back as my circumstances. Those sayings in the Bible and other major spiritual books teach us this. Sometimes that's not always emphasized, but it's true. So, I just have to look at myself when something's going on that I haven't changed and say, well, okay, what do I need to do differently? Because to go outside and blame something out there is like looking in a mirror and seeing ink on the face of the person in the mirror and rubbing on the mirror to try and clean it off. How successful is that? I don't think so. Although I've tried it many times. We can change our minds. Spirit will respond equally when we change our minds. The phrase that we have in Science of Mind is, principle is not bound by precedent. In other words, what's happened before doesn't determine what's going to happen. Spirit will respond to you just as we change. Now, I don't mean just saying we're going to change, like, I'm not going to eat those 3 dozen chocolate cakes a week that I was eating. I'm going to go to work and be a better person and help out people around me and not think about my boss's crummy actions. No, it's one that you make and you truly make a change. How many of us say to ourselves, I'm changing this, but do we really? I learned one thing. I changed when the price of staying where I was too great. Have you ever heard that before? The price of staying where I was too great an impact on my life. And so what happened was that I had to get to the point that I was willing to do what it took. Now, that point is different in multiple areas of my life. We have to make a decision and really decide. How many of us make passive decisions and we don't stick to them? What do you think the effect is long term of that? Do you learn not to trust yourself? When you tell yourself you're going to do something but you don't do it? How much do you believe in yourself after that? Do you find yourself not believing that prayer works so much? That what we think and do doesn't matter as much as what other people do or what the world is. Do you think the president controls the quality of your life? Even in the worst of times, there have been people who thrived. It didn't mean that they were the rich. It didn't mean that they were lucky. It meant they found a way to thrive, and Spirit supported them. You know, I used to spend time with a friend, and this really became clear to me. She came into town, and I was hanging out with her, really enjoying our time together. And I didn't do some of the things I normally do. And I mentioned, I'm not going to work out today, although I love to do it. Let's just go do this or that. And she looked at me and said, Susan, the difference between you and me? And I said, what? And she said, if I decided I was going to work out, I would work out, even if it meant we spent less time together, because I have decided. It was like a disguised duh from Spirit. Duh. That was what I was doing unconsciously. I was giving up my commitment. And you may think, oh, it's just for a day or two. What happens when you start doing that? Yeah, it can be just this real slope of going down to a whole different way of being. I got the message, and it changed me. We can all tell ourselves to notice what we're thinking, and it works. Have you ever told yourself, I'm going to wake up 10 minutes before the clock goes off in the morning? Have you? And what happened? Did you wake up 10 minutes before the clock went off? I've had that happen many times. And so if we tell ourselves, I'm noticing what I think, I'm noticing every time I think of something that is in opposition to my stated goal. And that worked. I really did begin to notice. And then I realized why I was getting what I was getting. It was what I was putting out. And what happens if you pray for something, or what we call treat, affirmative prayer, and you get it, and then you don't like it? Have you ever had that happen? I have, and I remember speaking to a wise minister, Reverend Karen Wilson, who used to be the associate minister at Spiritual Living Center of Atlanta. And I said, oh, Karen, I'm really frustrated about this. Why are you staying there? She said. I said, well, I treated it in. She said, you can treat it out too and treat another circumstance. And I thought, duh, could have had a V8. And it was true. You don't have to stick with anything you don't want to. I'm not talking about frivolously changing your mind and flipping and flopping back forth. I'm talking about really making a decision and noticing, because our thoughts happen so fast, noticing when I'm thinking something I don't want. And I always said, what if everything I thought appeared in front of me? Boy, I'd love to have a tiger. Boom, there's a tiger. I think I might be saying, I'd like to be far away from that tiger really, really quickly. If I thought, my boss is such a jerk, I wish I wasn't around him anymore. Boom, maybe I got fired. Wasn't around my boss anymore. We can change our minds, and Spirit gives just as much energy to that which we focus on. So we choose something new and we focus on that, and we listen to practical things, because many things come to us in very ordinary ways. It's not magic. Sometimes things appear just that we are astounded by. I remember when I was living in Maui, I didn't like it, and I thought, I really want to go back to Atlanta. Why would I get to go back to Atlanta? I thought, well, I'd have to have a lot more money. And I thought about it, and I went to the ministers' conference in California and came back and checked my bank account, and there was $13,000 more in there than when I left. And you know what I said? Those Hawaiian schools aren't good. They're going to figure this out and take the money back. And that's exactly what happened. Next time I decide to manifest a large money, I'm just going to say, thank you, Jesus. Really. I was raised Southern Baptist, so it matters. When we allow anything, whatever it is, to move us away from our intention, our purpose diminishes and may be left behind. When we focus only upon the details of something or how we're going to create the outcome, we may miss the big picture and not manifest what we want. You focus on this and that and the other. It's kind of like telling God, Spirit, higher power, Allah, whatever, you can't do it right. I have to tell you how to do it so it will be right. And what does that lead to? What do you think happens? We have to micromanage everything or it's not going to be right. And then when we don't micromanage, it's not right. And when we do micromanage, nobody likes us anyway. Really. You know, what seems to be negative also that happens may lead to an extremely positive outcome for you. So when something happens that you didn't expect, don't spend your time moaning and groaning about, this, that, or the other. Focus on your goal. I made a little sign for myself, and it says, focus on your goal, because I get distracted. Oh, there's a shiny penny on the floor. Look, there's a dime. That, do you know what he said? Do you know what she did, etc.? But when I focused on my goal, I've had things happen like that money in Maui in an extremely short period of time. I didn't spend time focusing on it. I just made that decision that if I had more money, I'd go home. I got the money. It didn't stay, and I didn't go home either. I stayed at the church. So just think about this, that things that we fail at sometimes are the greatest gifts. That's how Velcro was invented. That's how penicillin came to be. They were accidents. As I said earlier, so many people are focusing on the government right now. The government does not control the quality of our lives. And you may say, but they put this and they did that and this has happened to me. Guess what? You can treat about changing those circumstances. Do you think the government is bigger than God? Do you think the government is more powerful? I know a lot of people who do. And they spend a lot of time having ulcers. Turn away from what you want and turn to what you do. And what matters is moving forward in life. Being kind and generous, thoughtful and ethical, because it catches up with us when we don't. And I will tell you that learning science of mind totally changed my life. The quality of my life has just skyrocketed since I began using these principles. Now, please know that it is none of my business what underwear you chose to wear here today, or the lack thereof, i.e. going commando. You are a beloved being. You are the child of the Most High. You have access, and I have access. We all have access to unlimited power. You are welcome in this world, and you are welcome in this center. Let's have our own hymns of firm foundation. Turn to your own page 256. Thank you for being here today, and thank you for sharing this talk with me. It's meant a lot to me, and I hope it means a lot to you. So, namaste, aloha, shalom, blessed be, amen. And if you care to join, and so it is.
Thank you, Susan. All right. What a bunch of awesome ideas. Change your thinking, change your life, right? Oh, so much. So now it's time for our new minister. This is the abbreviated version of our new minister Sacred Covenant Easy Prayer, which is available on the website, cslmidtown.org. There is only one life. This life is God, and I am one with it. I know my new minister is a revelation of spirit as principle, fulfilling God's promise. For principle is not bound by precedent, but operates according to law for those who align with it. Together with my community, I see my new minister inspiring spiritual oneness through wisdom, love, and authenticity. One that is awakened to inner wisdom, communicates universal truth, and serves as a conduit of divine love, wisdom, and healing energy. One that recognizes the inherent wholeness within all beings and offers teachings grounded in spiritual principles to cultivate inner transformation. One that extends love, compassion, and Spirit's transformative power into the wider community, fostering connections that heal, uplift individuals on their unique journeys. As I accept the highest expression of a new minister into my life, I know they will be revealed in a way that expresses Spirit and serves the highest good of all touched by their presence. I am grateful, for God is good, and so it is. All right. Now it's time for conscious giving. If you're in the room, there's a basket in the back, or you can scan the QR code and donate that way, or go to cslmidtown.org/donate and set up a one-time contribution or an ongoing contribution. And we appreciate everything. And if you're here, we appreciate you. If you're online or listening to this later, we appreciate you. And if you're spiritually fed, consider giving if you haven't been already. So now say with me our affirmation for prosperity. I live in a universe of abundance. As I freely and joyfully give, I join in the divine flow, and all that I share with life returns to me, multiplied abundance, and so it is. So we've got some announcements. So next week, Reverend Dr. Jerry Troyer is going to be back with us online. He's in San Diego. He's an awesome speaker. And I'm going to be out. So John's helping out with that, and it should be a great service for that. So tune in for that. If you want a deeper understanding of these principles that Susan talked about this morning, our adult study group meets at 10 a.m. on Sunday mornings online. You can go to cslmidtown.org, scroll down to the Zoom link, and click on that. They meet at 10. They're going through the Science of Mind textbook. You're close to the end, right, Judy? Yeah, so getting that. But that's the basis of everything we do and teach. So if you're interested, come join them with that. And now our affirmation of life. I leave this place now knowing something better than I knew before. I go forth into the world with a heart full of love and a mind full of good sense. I look at the world in a greater way, knowing that I have within me everything I need to create the life I desire. I give thanks for this understanding, and I am grateful for the spirit of life that lives through me. And so it is. And food will be out in a minute. I appreciate everybody in the room. And for those of you online, I'm not going to try and switch this over. So we appreciate you for being here in person and online. And we'll move the tables around and set up for the potluck. And thank you, Susan. Appreciate you so much. All right. Have a great week, everybody.